Hi all, Baines here from BSA Bantams, and I got the shims and I've put the crankcases together on the Jawa, and we've got good clearance down the side, so all's going really well there. A big thank you to all those people that have subscribed. We're currently just over 200 subscribers, so thank you very much for that. It's very much appreciated. So, next job is obviously fit the barrel up, but a mate of mine who I contacted about various other things, very knowledgeable on Jawas, was telling me some of these pistons are a bit long in the skirt, and on the inside of the piston is supposed to be a sizable sort of radius to clear the crankshaft flywheels. So we'll be dry fitting, once I get the barrel on, we'll just dry fit it up, rotate the crank down and make sure that this has clearance, and if it hasn't, we'll obviously put the piston up in the lathe and we'll put a chamfer on there. So that's the next jobby to go on with, so we'll get on to that. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just giving this piston a bit of a heat up to expand it. I've got my puller on there to pull the gudgeon pin through, and we'll get it pulled into the conrod, and I'll drop the barrel on and see how we go. Just popping a bit more heat into the piston. You can see we're nearly drawn it all the way through. We're inside the top end bearing, so all going well. So I've got the barrel on. We've just dropped it on, obviously without the studs in. But the piston clears the flywheels at the bottom, which is a good sign. And it's pretty high comp, look at that. I haven't got any gaskets in this, like base gasket or head gasket yet. But this is the difference between like British two-strokes and the Eastern European ones. I mean, this has got a squish band and everything on it, nicely located. I'll just spin that over and ensure that I haven't got, well, guarantee that I've got clearance, which I have. That's all fine. And the next thing I'm going to do is, while I've got it like this, get the piston right at top dead center, and we're going to go back up through the inlet tract and see if I've got any piston skirt overhanging in the inlet tract. It's pretty long. It's not like a Bantam, and I can't really see. So I'll get a scriber up there and I'll just scribe it, see if I can feel the lip, and scribe a line. So I'm just running this scriber up the, and there's a tiny little bit hanging in there. All right, we'll have to investigate that and maybe take just a lick out of the skirt of the piston, but it's going well. All right, so when I was feeling up in there, it's actually the inlet port is actually through the skirt of the piston, the barrel, sorry. So that's what I was actually sort of feeling when I was up in there. So I can't really reach or get anything in there. So I've just done I've got a little handheld boroscope camera. So I just had a look up there and it all looks fine. So what we'll go on to now is actually doing the fit up for the barrel and putting rings on and everything like that. Getting this top end all put on. Okay, I'm just about to drop my gudgeon pin clips in, and I'll hold that a bit closer and just see if you can see it. Now there's a school of thought that if you put them at 90 degrees, the actual weight of the legs can actually cause the clip to move when the piston's decelerating and accelerating, because you think how aggressive it is when the piston hits top dead center and it's racing all the way down. So I always put my legs on my clips in a vertical plane, either facing up or facing down. So we've got the gudgeon pin clips in, and it was actually a bit of a challenge. That gudgeon pin has to be perfectly aligned to allow them to fit. So, you know, I'm a bit visually challenged, so actually get in there and have a good look and make sure that they're seated properly. So we're ready to fit rings, and what this is here is a little slipstone, little oil stone. So this corner right here, I just drag an oil stone across it just to take the very sharp edge off it so it doesn't score my bore. And I'll do that to all my rings. Just take that corner off. Okay, the other thing I've done is actually place my gasket on both the cases and on flip the barrel over and done that as well, just to make sure that none of this gasket is overhanging into your transfer ports. Because if it is, just get a little modelling knife and just trim the edge off it and make sure it's all right and it's not hanging over in your transfers, because it will really affect your performance. So we've done that as well. So where barrel studs in and we're nearly ready to go, I'll get these rings on as well. Alright, just cleaning off all my mating surfaces at the moment in preparation to put some sealant on and drop the barrel on. Alright, so I've got everything prepped, ready to go. Now, I usually drop the piston into the barrel and then drop the whole lot down and push the gudgeon pin across. But the gudgeon pin on this is reasonably tight. You can see I use my sort of generic puller to pull the gudgeon pin across. So that's not really going to work. So I'm about to go off and grab my stepson. He can give me a hand. Just position the barrel as I go around and just close the rings up. There's a nice, those barrels have a nice lead in, so I don't envisage I'll have too much trouble. But we'll get that done. Alright, so now we got the barrel on. There's a bit of jiggling around, but no dramas. Head gasket on, and we're about to drop the head on. I always put a little bit of thread lubricant on the studs, and I'll pull it up to minimum torque. Once the engine's up and running, because this one is running a head gasket, I'll do another torque. So, you know, 8mm 5/16. I'll creep torque it from 14 inch-pound, 16, then 18 as my final torque, and then when I get the engine warmed up, I'll pull it up to 18 again. All going good though. So the other thing I've got to do, there's 3 screws in the skirt of the barrel. They've got to go in too, so I'll get those done. Alright, so now we're going to fit up our primary drive side. So the gear selector mechanism has these little spring-loaded pawls, one on either side. And they've got to drop down into here. So what I'll do is get a 6-inch rule either side so the pawl can actually run down the face of it. It's a bit of a ticky touch and they do spring out and it's a bit of a prick of a job, but we'll get it in. Alright, time to drop the primary drive chain in. The car's starting up out there. Now we just need our Gucci bush that we made. So what I'm just verifying now is this, that's a pretty firm fitting primary drive chain. So I'm just getting hold of the main shaft at the back and making sure the clutch basket still spins on the main shaft, which it does with these. And it's got to have oil in it. I'm used to a Bantam chain, which they're as sloppy as anything. So we'll get all this done up. So lock tab washers on there, and actually that goes on first, and we drop the lock tab washer on there. So we'll get those nuts on and done up. So I've got our nuts done up. They go all right. Plus our centre of our clutch basket's spinning independent of the outer, which is exactly what you want. So I'm very happy with that. So I'll just tab these over and we'll get into actually fitting up the clutch pack. All right, I've had my clutch plates soaking in oil for a while. So we'll get these in and get some springs on it. Now this is the tricky little bit. They've got these washers that go over the top and need to be pressed down, and this thing called a dog bone needs to go through the hole. So in order to do that, you make up a Gucci little tool like that so you can try and compress it down. Like that. Oh, that didn't work too bad. So now we've got to fit up kickstart quadrant and spring and the gear change shaft and kickstart shaft all in one. So this Jawa engine insists on throwing me a few challenges. So it's a little bit hard to explain, but I'll give it a go. So this is a kickstart shaft, kickstarter and gear change lever. It's all in one on a Jawa. So in order to kickstart it, you actually push the shaft across and then rotate your kickstart gear change lever around. This dog here engages on that part of the quadrant there in order to kickstart it. So once you let the kickstart lever go, it rotates back around and this spring here sits on the back of that and pushes the shaft back out, and then it turns itself into a gear change lever. I hope you're following. So what's happened is this quadrant thickness is the same as this shoulder here. So what's happening is when it's springing back out to turn into gear change mode, it's basically dropping off the back of this because it's the same width. Now looking at my parts list, on the kickstart quadrant here, it's got some sort of sleeve set up on the back. So, and this shaft looks slightly different. So I think I have a mismatch of parts. So what I'm going to have a crack at to stop it, this gear just sliding off the back, is I'm going to make a little sleeve and push it onto the shaft. Now that will increase the spring tension on this a bit, but it's certainly not horrendous, but it'll give it a surface for that quadrant to run on, because at the moment I have dry fitted it, like with the cover and the gear change lever, and it doesn't work. Simple as that. So it gets to a point where the kickstart quadrant comes out of alignment on the gear behind the back of the clutch basket and you just can't get it to work. So that's what I've got to do, and we'll keep going. Geez, I just want to put this thing together. Anyway, it's certainly not a Bantam, that's for sure. So I've got to the bottom of the kickstart quadrant issue and how this fits up. And the problem is, this is the wrong one. It's supposed to have this one. So yes, it looks a bit manky, but luckily enough for me, I had another engine actually given to me. So we got the side cover off. It was a bit of a challenge. I'll actually take you around and we'll have a look at the engine, the other engine. So this is the engine that we got the quadrant out of. So it took a fair bit of getting out, as you can see. It's crusty. So kickstart shaft is actually well and truly seized in there. I had to, as you can see, I had to drill some of the screws out, but we got it apart very gingerly, and we were able to get the kickstart quadrant out, and it's the right one for the engine. But that's the state of this engine. So this is the quadrant we took out of the other crusty old engine, and this is the kickstart quadrant that was in there. And as you can see, this has got a fair recess in there. As per the parts list, it's actually got a sleeve on the back there. So your spring that pushes the shaft back out between kickstart and gear change mode fits in there. And you've got all that surface area to run off. Oh, so I've just dropped the spring. So what I'll do now is I'll drop the spring off, I'll give it a bead blast and clean it all up. Give the sliding area in here a bit of a polish, and we'll be back into actually putting it back together, and I might be able to get the side cover on now. So there's our new and improved kickstart quadrant in. I've just had the cover on, a couple of screws in, just made sure everything's operational and it works like a treat. So now it's time to clean up this surface here, clean up the surface on the cover, and get the gasket on and get some screws in. So just getting the primary drive cover on now, getting all the screws in, and what I'll go do around and do after, obviously I'll get all the screws in and torqued up, clean up all the excess sealant, get the little oil level screw and washer in, fibre washer in on that. So I do have one issue, another issue, God, this thing's been the whole lot. If you can see the Kickstarter, it's not only threaded there, but it's threaded there. So once you screw that in and the threads line up, it won't actually squeeze down. So I'm just going to run a drill through this half here, so it can actually pull up on the bottom and actually squeeze itself onto the spline. Bit of a design fault there, but anyway, not a biggie. We'll get over it. Alright, onto the drive side of the engine. So I've just dropped the distance piece in here, the spacer, and we'll get our sprocket on. And the reason I wanted to show you this side, because Jawas have a pretty unique setup. You'll see this cam surface here, it goes through and is driven off your gear change lever. So when you're changing gears, that moves and rides on this little lever here, which also activates your clutch. So your clutch pushes across like that, your clutch cable comes through here, and it'll either push this little plunger down here where my thumb is, you'll see that moving up and down. But if you go for your gear change lever, it activates the clutch as well. So effectively, you don't need to pull the clutch in at all while you're going along. When you're changing gears, it actually pulls the clutch in a bit. So another thing was that this bike was missing its sump plug. So we've just machined up a sump plug, and I'll fit that up. So as you can see, engine's back in the frame. I'm unhappy with my lever, it's a little bit loose, and this this bolt is as soft as butter, so I'm going to get a high tensile bolt for this just to clamp it up a bit more. If you've never seen a Jawa kickstart gear lever work, to get it to go, this is in gear lever mode now. To get it to go to kickstart, you just press the shaft in and rotate it around, and it becomes a kickstart lever. Then pops back out, gear change again. There's a couple little jobbies to do on the other side, but I've got to go into manufacturing some parts for Oz Bantams, so I'm happy that it's in here for the time being. We'll finish off those couple of little jobs on the other side, and then the engine's all done. You can see I've plugged up all my holes with rags, that's why the rags are sitting there. So, engine all back together after a bit of a challenge in a few places, but I'm very happy. That's the end of the episode. Before I go, we've clocked over 200 subscribers, so to all those people that have subscribed, thank you very much. It's really terrific. So that's it for the Jawa for a little while, and we'll see you later.